Well, we are just full. This season ahead of us is so full of opportunity. Yeah, it's far too easy. In fact, I was caught in, and I just want to thank one of my staff members, Barb. She was like, we're in a staff meeting, and I'm just going, it's so busy. And she said, can we just stop saying it's busy? It's a season of opportunity. And it really is a great season of opportunity. Over the next coming weeks, we are going to have thousands of people walking through this facility. We have 14 external rentals in the next 3 weeks coming in to here. We just had 1,500 people at the light party last weekend. We've got Christmas extravaganza coming up in the towards that 15th to 17th of December, as you heard before from Pastor Nick. And of course, then there's carols in your own communities. We want you to go with your neighbors too and encourage you to be a part of that. We've got our Christmas services. We're just creating so many opportunities where people from our community will be invited to experience a loving family where they can take their next steps towards experiencing life with Jesus. Isn't that exciting? Who's your one? Who's your one? You know, a lot of Christians think that they're not going to be very warmly received when it comes to, extending themselves and talking about matters of faith or God and church with others. So for many, excuse me, it feels like inviting people to church and even a Christmas celebration might hurt their relationship, might do some damage there because this is what I believe and I don't know what they believe, or I don't want to force my beliefs on them. But that kind of defeatist approach does really nothing for us, and it certainly does nothing for them. The assumption that people in our world are opposed to us sharing our faith, it makes us retreat. It makes us want to defend our faith instead of being led by love to share when we've experienced the love of God and long to be able to share that with somebody else. I'm a part of our local cricket club, and my boy still plays, and I help to assist in coaching and just get along to the games and be there with the kids and be there with the parents and that sort of thing. And about 6 weeks ago, it was the first, about 5 weeks, 6 weeks ago, it was the first game of the season. And so you're catching up with everybody, and everybody's asking as I'm sitting there, how's things going with your work and those sorts of things. And someone turned to me and asked how things at the church, and I started to describe the exciting things we've got coming up with the light party and Christmas, and it's just wonderful and it's exciting and there's so many things. And out of the blue, one of the parents, one of the dads, just goes, "Hey, I just don't get what's all the difference between all the different brands of Christianity." Oh, this is a great conversation. So we just started to talk and we started investigating. He goes, "What? Are there some that don't even believe in Easter and Christmas?" And I said, "Well, no, they're not Christians, And then I got a chance to explain what a Christian is. And it was just so easy. It was just so comfortable. The week after that, I was talking with another dad, happened to be the coach and head coach, and sitting on the sideline together as the boys were playing. And he'd just been through some trauma. He said, "John, I just learnt the power of forgiveness." He's not a believer. He goes, "I just learnt the power of forgiveness." And I said, "Yeah, I think that's a really, really important thing. Because, God has wired us in such a way that we're not only to forgive others, but that when we recognize that we've actually sinned against God, we need His forgiveness." We didn't take it much further than that. We just let it sit and ruminate, and we got talking about some other things. Did you know that research from McCrindle suggests that 2 in every 3, that's 64%, this is Australian research just recently, 64% of Australians would come to church if you invited them. 2 out of every 3. Barna research found that 41% of non-Christians would be open to participating in a spiritual conversation about Christianity if the experience felt friendly. I heard of this game warden who had a friend who'd come back from these fishing trips with just hundreds of fish, just, popped up on ice after they'd gone fishing, just hundreds of fish. And this game warden just was thinking, how on earth does he catch this many fish? And so intrigued, he went to his friend and he said, listen, I'm baffled. I've done a lot of fishing in my time, but you are an exceptional fisherman. I'd like to learn how it is that you catch some fish. How do you do it? What's the secret to your success? And he said, well, why don't you come with me and you can see. And so they do, and they arrange for a time and a date, and they meet together, and they jump in the boat. And the game warden looks at his friend and thinks, he's carrying a net, and that's it. Like, not a big fishing net, like just a scoopy net, No rod, no reel, no tackle box, just a bag and a net. He thinks, this is strange. Anyway, they get out to the spot on the lake where he likes to go fishing, and he reaches into his bag and he pulls a stick of dynamite out and he lights the fuse and he throws it into the water. And anyway, it goes off and all these stunned fish rise to the surface and he just scoops them all up and pops them into the bag. Well, the warden just goes, what on earth are you doing? You can't do that. Like, that's so illegal. You can't be, I'm a game warden. You're throwing dynamite in there. It's not how you fish. That is not how we do it. We can't do it like this. This is crazy. And he just goes on and on and on. And he's talking about it, and his friend just reaches back into the bag, grabs another stick of dynamite, lights the fuse and hands it to him and said, are you going to sit there and talk, or are you going to fish? This is pretty simple. We've been called to be fishers of men. And while Christians do a lot of talking about fishing, we really actually need to do some. When it comes to personally reaching out to others, I think our biggest hurdle is fear. Would I be right? We're afraid that we might ruin a good friendship by sharing our beliefs. We might not know what to say, and so we have a fear of not having an answer to something. Maybe we fear invading somebody's privacy. That's their private beliefs. You believe what you believe, I believe what I believe. Let's leave it at that. I think perhaps the greatest of all fear is the fear that we might fail. We think we're going to fail. And yet when we're faithful to share Jesus with others, the responsibility of all those results are not ours but His. And while we're getting ready to do some fantastic things, some great meaningful events for people to come to River Life, the real opportunity isn't with the staff and volunteers, it's with all of us, it's with you. The River Life family. To make the most of every opportunity to invite people to come. To have a wonderful opportunity to invite your friends, your neighbors, your co-workers to something meaningful where they're going to hear more about Jesus. And so today, I want to encourage you that it really is very easy to extend an invitation for people to come and see Jesus. Let's turn to a passage that I've been stuck in this week, and that's why you're hearing about it. I'd like to turn to John chapter 1. Now, the context of this passage is John starting his gospel, and as he starts the gospel, he is just going loud and proud about who Jesus is. He starts to define him right from the beginning, the Word, when the Word was with God and the Word was God, and he just goes on to be able to, in this whole first chapter, just bring out the magnificence of who Jesus is, to his audience that he's writing to. And he introduces John the Baptist, and again, John the Baptist proclaims, oh, look, behold, the Lamb of God. And so we get a context understanding of these names of who Jesus is and his character, and as we go forth. And then you see Jesus towards the back end, or midway to back end of this chapter 1, start to be able to choose his disciples, and he's starting to encourage people to come with him. And he talks about that. So let's turn to John chapter 1, starting in verses 36. I'd like us to read through to 42. It says, when he saw Jesus passing by, that is, John the Baptist, when he saw Jesus passing by, he said, look, the Lamb of God. And when the two disciples heard him say this, they followed Jesus. Turning around, Jesus saw them following and asked, "What do you want?" They said, "Rabbi," which means teacher, "where are you staying?" "Come," Jesus replied, "and you will see." So they went and they saw where he was staying and they spent the day with him. It was about 4 p.m. Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, was one of the two who heard Jesus, what John had said, and who had followed Jesus. The first thing Andrew did was to find his brother Simon and tell him, "We found the Messiah." That means the Christ. And he brought him to Jesus. And Jesus looked at him and said, "You are Simon, son of John. You will be called Cephas," which when translated means Peter. The result of Andrew spending time with Jesus for the day, following him, asking, "Can we come?" and being invited to come to see where Jesus is staying and spending the day with him, was that he now wanted to go and tell his best friend, his brother, about Jesus. The result of spending that time with Jesus was that Andrew realized he had the possession of information that was too good to keep to himself. So Andrew went immediately and found a person he loved most in the world, his brother Simon, and said to him, "Hey, you've got to come and meet Jesus." We had a weekend of celebration. One of our staff members, Scotty, got married to Charlotte yesterday, and we had a beautiful wedding and that, and people came from all over the world to be there, and I had the privilege of hosting David Wagner, who's a really trusted friend of this house, a real prophetic voice into our community, and I've experienced that personally. We've experienced it as a church together, and he was here, and he came all the way from the States to just do the ceremony, and so I thought, and he arrived on Friday, and he stayed at our house, and so I thought, my senior leadership team, they don't quite, not all of them have met David. I really want them to meet him, and so I put the invitation out there because I wanted them to experience what I know true of David. He's such a gracious, loving guy with such a prophetic gifting. I just wanted them to come and spend some time with him. I wanted him to come and spend some time with us this morning, but he flew out at 6 a.m. again this morning, and so you've got me instead of him. But you see, we should all be wanting our friends and family to come and experience and meet Jesus. If you've got a friend, like I've got a friend in David, and I want you to meet him. Why? Because he's a great guy. You should get to know him. And it's that same level of relational capacity we should have with our friends, our family, our colleagues, our co-workers, others to reach out and want to say, "I want you to come meet Jesus." We don't want them to miss out. You don't have to memorize some special plan. You don't have to memorize the New Testament. You don't have to be trained or ordained or even have the church's permission, although we give it. All you have to do is spend time with Jesus and go tell someone about it. Have you spent enough time with Jesus that you can't help but want to share him with others? Is it burning in your heart in this season of opportunity to want somebody who you love and know to come and meet Jesus? It was on Andrew's heart. This really simple, ordinary guy, Andrew. I find it kind of challenging because Andrew introduces his brother, Simon Peter, to Jesus. And all of a sudden, Simon Peter's the mouthpiece for the disciples, He's the one who we talk most about as a disciple probably. And Andrew just fades into the background. But you would never have heard of Simon Peter if it wasn't for Andrew, his brother. And the first thing he did, can you hear the urgency in the scriptures? There can be no question that the most effective means of bringing people to Christ is that one at a time, on an individual basis. Every time we come across Andrew in John's gospel, he's inviting someone to come. If you read ahead into John chapter 6 and you've got that story of the loaves and the fishes, guess who finds the boy who comes and brings the loaf and fishes to be multiplied? Andrew. A little bit later on, skip through to John chapter 12, and there's a whole bunch of Greek people who seeking out an audience with Jesus, and they come to Philip, and Philip says, I have no idea how we're going to make that happen. I'll get Andrew to do it. Andrew brings them to Jesus. Andrew's always inviting people to Jesus. And what stands out about me is he's a pretty ordinary guy. But he's passionate about people meeting Jesus. Anyone can invite someone else to come and see about Jesus for themselves. You and me, we can all do it. Really is. Have a look at what happens the very next day, okay? So there's about 4 days in John chapter 1, one after the other, after the other, after the other. And so let's pick it up in verse 43. The next day, Jesus decided to leave for Galilee. Finding Philip, he said to him, follow me. Philip, like Andrew and Peter, was from the town of Bethsaida. Philip found Nathanael and told him, we have found the one Moses wrote about in the law and about whom the prophets wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. Nazareth? Can anything good come from there? Nathanael replied. Come and see, said Philip. When Jesus saw Nathanael approaching him, he said, here truly is an Israelite in whom there is no deceit. How do you know me? Nathanael asked. Jesus answered, I saw you while you were still under the fig tree before Philip called you. Then Nathanael declared, Rabbi, you are the Son of God, you are the King of Israel. And Jesus said, you believe because I saw you under a fig tree, you will see greater things than that. He then added, very truly I tell you, you will see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man. Just like Andrew, Philip is not a well-known disciple. If Andrew's remembered as an ordinary guy, Philip's kind of your practical kind of guy. Philip from Bethsaida, same place as the other two we've heard about so far, Peter and Andrew. Bethsaida, this small town on the side of the Sea of Galilee. Philip seems to be an ordinary kind of guy who often gets in over his head. I don't know about you, but I can identify with that. Earlier we noted in John chapter 6, with the loaves and the fishes. Well, before Andrew finds the kid with the loaves and fishes, Jesus turns to Philip just before that miracle of feeding the 5,000 and said, Philip, what are we going to do to feed these people? And Philip's response is, wow, that's like going to take 6 months' wages just to be able to feed this many people. He's true to his analytical, practical style. He's doing the calculations. He's looking around the room and he says, I have no clue what we're actually going to do. Again, in John 12, we mentioned it before. The Greeks came to Philip in Jerusalem asking to see Jesus. Literally, they have a private appointment to see Jesus. And Philip's like, Andrew, help? But we have to give Philip some credit. His first reaction after Jesus found him was to go to his friend with the good news. I love this next part. I just think it's part of God's sense of humor. I think it's put in there for a little bit of fun. So Philip's opening words to Nathanael are, we have found him in whom the scriptures speak, Nathanael, the one we found him, the one we've been searching for all our lives. It's Jesus from Nazareth, the son of Joseph. And Nathanael's response is, anything good come from there? Like, seriously? See, Nathanael comes from Cana. We learn that a little bit later in John chapter 21. And there we know he comes from Cana. And Cana is just like down the road a little bit from Nazareth. And so there's this intertown rivalry kind of thing going on in this same place. And so he's like, anything good come from there? Heck no. I think God's just reminding us that, hey, sometimes you're going to meet some people and they're not thinking anything good can come of church, anything good can come of Christmas, anything good can come of what you believe. Can't believe anything good would come from Nazareth. And I love Philip's confident response. It's as confident as Andrew in going. He spent time with Jesus and he knows he's the real deal. And Philip did not have to create an argument about anything good, defend Nazareth, defend Jesus, defend anybody at that point in time. He just simply says, come and see. Come and see for yourself. Come and see for yourself, Nathanael. Philip didn't try to argue the point convincingly and was wise enough to know that he wasn't going to argue Nathanael out of his skepticism. He just simply invited him to come see for himself. Now, we're all supposed to be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give reason for the hope that you have. 1 Peter chapter 3. But sometimes the best answer about Jesus is just come see for yourself. River Life, I want you to be confident to invite people to come and experience Jesus. That's why we spend so much time focusing on the presence of God. We will do everything we do with the excellence we always do it. But let me say, you are not coming to people and say, come and see a food truck. Come and see a light display. Come and see some Christmas markets. Come and see Jesus. He's going to change your life. Come and meet Jesus. Come and see for yourself. And the assurance we have when inviting people to come to church or come to an outreach event like Christmas is that Jesus knows them and he sees them when they come. Too often we're so worried about, will the right preacher be on? Will the right words be sung? Will the right carols be there for the Christmas services? Will it be okay? Is someone going to get offended or whatever else? We can be confident that God's presence is sufficient. Come and meet Jesus. A few months ago, one of our prayer team members had been consistently reaching out to a neighbour to come to church, and it just never worked out. Until one day the neighbour walked back over and said, hey, I'd like to come to church. And she's like, Sunday. She goes, I can't make it Sunday. And it was a worship room night. She said to her neighbour, why don't you come to worship room? If you've been in a worship room, we're not talking seeker sensitive. We're talking hours of just continuous worship. There's no one speaking a message, no cup of tea or coffee. It's just worship. But she was so confident to invite her friend who does not yet know Jesus to come because she knew that she'd meet Jesus at worship room. And she did. And she received prayer. And she continues the conversation about who this Jesus is and is excited and interested to come and see and hear more about who this Jesus is. And Jesus saw Nathanael coming towards him. Here truly is an Israelite in whom there is no deceit. You can be confident that when you're inviting a friend who might even be skeptical to come, Jesus already sees them and knows them. He knows how to meet them. The words of Jesus stopped Nathanael in his tracks. He goes, how do you know me? That here truly is an Israelite in whom there is no deceit is kind of like, hey, here's an Israelite in whom he's an honest, transparent man. In fact, the real way it would have been said, literally he would have said, behold an Israelite in whom there is no Jacob, because Jacob means deceiver. He's the one who dished his brother out of his birthright, remember? So Nathanael says to him, how do you know me? And Jesus said to him, before Philip called you, you were under a fig tree and I saw you. Now when Jesus says this to Nathanael, the response seems disproportionate, doesn't it? First he's shocked, how do you even know me? And then he says, oh, because I saw you before Philip called you and you were under a fig tree. Now, rabbis would say, and it's a way of using a phrase that being under your fig tree is like being in your prayer closet. That's where you went to pray. Being on your fig tree. You've been in the presence of God. Like you're in your quiet time, right? You've spent some time in the Word of God. You spent some time in prayer and listening and talking with the Lord. And so when you're doing this is your fig tree. And he says, I saw you. Nathanael had a religious experience that only Jesus knew about. I saw you when you were praying. I heard what you asked the Father for. Now you can see why there is the response that he now gives. Where it's not only shocked at how do you know me, now he's like, oh wow, you are the Son of God. You know, today, those same experiences can happen as Jesus reveals things to other people through Christians. The presence of God, when we're ministering to each other, and His grace abounding towards each of us, His empowering presence, it really makes people stop and think, wow, how do you know that about me? Paul talks about this in 1 Corinthians. This seemed to be a usual practice in the early church. He says, but if an unbeliever or an inquirer comes in while everyone is prophesying, they are convicted of sin, brought under judgment by all, as the secrets of their heart are laid bare, so they will fall down and worship God, exclaiming, God is really among you. Nathanael's response, Rabbi, you are the Son of God, you are the King of Israel. And Jesus' response to Nathanael just blew him away. He clearly had not expected anything like Jesus' answer, but it had a profound effect on him. Anything good come from Nazareth has now turned into rabbi, teacher. There's a respect. You are the Son of God, not a Son of God. You are the Son of God, the rightful King of Israel. See, everyone has a need that only Jesus can meet. That friend you're inviting, they have a need that they probably might not have even expressed to you. But Jesus knows their need, and Jesus is the one who can meet their need. Nathanael was skeptical, and you'll have your fair share of skeptics too. When you start inviting people, that's going to be commonplace. There'll be people who are not quite sure whether to believe you or take up your invitation. There'll be those who aren't even interested. Some will be interested while cautious, and some will be really interested and come straight away. The point is, everybody, regardless of how they come, have a need that only Jesus can meet, and you can be confident that Jesus sees them and can meet their need. The old adage is correct. There is a God-shaped hole inside all of us. Jesus turns around and he says, hey, you believe, Nathanael, you believe because I told you I saw you under a fig tree? You'll see greater things than that. Truly, I tell you, you will see heaven open, the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man. Jesus is reassuring Nathanael that this is just the beginning. Jesus says, Nathanael, because you saw that I'm omniscient, I know what you were, where you were thinking, what was happening, and you've not seen anything yet. And fast forward, this guy is one of the 12 disciples. Nathanael becomes one of the 12. Of all the things he's going to see as he walks with Jesus. And Jesus takes him in his response way back to a couple of thousand years beforehand. With Jacob, remember what he said to him when he arrived? Here's an Israelite in whom I find no deceit. And he takes him right back to that time in Genesis chapter 28 where Jacob left Beersheba and set up for Haran. And when they reached a certain place, he stopped for the night because the sun had set, and taking the stones there, he put it under his head, lay down to sleep, and he had a dream in which he saw a stairway resting on the earth and its top to heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. God gave Jacob a vision of encouragement. He said, Jacob, look, even when you think you're all alone out here, there's traffic going on between heaven and earth on your behalf. Isn't that true that God is often closest when he seems the furthest away? And Jacob's response to the vision of heaven being open is revealed is, surely the Lord is in this place and I did not know it. A failure to recognize the presence of Jesus is a tragedy in any church. And an invitation to Christianity is not very interesting to us, let alone a world in need, if we don't understand it's his presence that makes all the difference. See, when you invite someone to church, the very best thing that they would get is a little taste of heaven. When they come and see Jesus, he's the meeting point of heaven on earth. The angels ascending and descending. Jesus talks about it as himself. I'm the ladder. I'm that point where heaven meets earth. He came and he tabernacled amongst us. He came, he pitched his tent here with us. When you're with Jesus, it's as though you're in the house of God, the temple itself, God's angels coming and going, God's own presence here with us. Is that what you're inviting people to? Because that's what's actually going to make all the difference. And so when you invite someone to come and see, just like Philip's invitation to Nathanael, what you really want them to come and meet is Jesus. Not all the trappings, not all the trimmings. They're there because they're fun, that's great. But the very best thing you can ever invite someone to who does not yet know Jesus is to come into a room where his presence dwells so strongly, where there's a palpable presence of God because of the hunger and the faith of those who have already met Jesus and spent time with him and can't wait for someone to come and tell him about him. So that means when we come to our carol service, when we come to our Christmas services, the very best thing you can do is not coming, I hope we sing O Silent Night on Christmas Eve. It's as we sing that you're in complete and utter adoration of the King of Kings. It's not that you're hoping to get out and hope this doesn't go more than an hour because, we've got things to do and people to pee and places to meet and all the rest of it. It's that we'd come and we'd worship and we'd host his presence. It's his presence that's going to make a difference. Not whether they came and they tasted and they saw that it was a nice, slick service or the music was great or it was a lot of fun. It's his presence that's going to make all the difference. And this is where you and I, after making the invitation, make all the difference to host his presence, because it's the faith of the believers gathered together where he longs to come and dwell. And in his presence, stuff happens. This opening chapter of John's Gospel, it goes to such great lengths. Take some time this week to read the whole chapter. Because John is trying to introduce us to a Jesus who can meet everybody's needs. Listen to all the titles John uses just in the first chapter of a Jesus. He's the Word. He's the Light. He's the Lamb of God, anointed of the Spirit, teacher, Messiah, Son of God, King of Israel, Son of Man. John is presenting Jesus as God with a supernatural knowledge of people and the ability to see them and meet their need, no matter what it is. Jesus, the one mediator between God and humankind. No matter what modern skeptics may say, Jesus consistently presented himself as the one and only way to God. I am the way, he said, the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except by me. Have you had that personal encounter with Jesus yourself? If you haven't, I don't blame you for not wanting to tell other people about him. Once you have, I trust you won't be able to stop. There's no time like the present. Maybe that today is the calling in your heart. Jesus is still seeking those who will follow him. Still looking for those who will say, yeah, I'll come. Why don't you take just a few minutes now just to close your eyes, bow your head. And Holy Spirit, we ask you now to reveal to us who's the one that we are going to invite to come and see you, Jesus. Come and meet you. Who's the one? Maybe it's more than one. That's great. Maybe the challenge is something's burning in our hearts to say, Jesus, I don't have like Andrew. I don't have like Philip as my first response to being in your presence a desire to go tell other people, change my heart, change my heart. Put a passion in my heart to want to tell other people about you, Jesus. To make the invitation for others to come and meet with you, Jesus. Maybe the Lord is placing a challenge that we'd step beyond fear. We step beyond fear. And we want to come into a place where we say, yes. Yes, you're the one who sees those. And you're the one who can meet their every need. I trust you more than I'm afraid of anything else. And if that's you this morning, and God's touched you in that way, just take a knee before him now and ask again. He'll give you that boldness and that courage. Come, Holy Spirit. Fill us as a church. Fill us as a church full of a desire to not only be in your presence, to experience you at work in our own lives, bringing freedom and healing and release. Build in us a passionate desire to invite others to come and see for themselves. We ask it in your name, Jesus.